that done. I would say, Genie, I want to be the best at controlling and moving the sights of my gun. I want to be able to put the sights of my gun exactly where I want them, faster than everybody else. If I can do that better than everybody else, put the sights of my gun, put my dot, is anybody shooting irons? Cool. If I can put my dot exactly where I want it to be, quicker than everybody else, you're gonna need to have a lot of grip, recoil management, trigger control to compensate for that skill being better. I can put the sights of my gun exactly where I want them, quicker than everybody else. That's a dry fire skill. And if you really want to become a ninja with your gun, if you really want to become an acrobat with that gun, it is becoming in tune not just with the gun and the physical handling of the gun, but visually becoming in tune with the sights of your gun, with your dot, right? People who are really good, they look at a target and their brain processes the information of, that's how far the transition is, this is the position my body is in, that's how difficult the target is, this is how and where I want my dot to show up, and it does so extremely quickly without having to think about it. That's a dry fire skill. We're gonna do a handful of reps. So, you know, on the spectrum of blocked training to randomized training, 100% randomized is every rep is completely different. Completely blocked is I'm doing the exact same thing over and over again. And for some reason, people just tend to drift towards this one. They're like, oh, so this one's better, right? More randomization is better, right? Think of the football player who makes $20 million a year. They're doing passing drills, right? He's sprinting 5 yards to the right and catching a ball or throwing a ball. And he's doing that over and over and over and over again until that's a skill that he has built to where it just happens without him having to think about it. You have to build skills first. Speed and accuracy are both skills. You have to build those skills. I can definitely be a lot more speedy and more accurate than I am currently. I still do blocked training in speed mode and accuracy mode. I also incorporate a lot of randomization though. Anyway, so we're gonna do a handful of reps before we change each time.
Dry fire. Those who are doing dry fire, most of them, this is what will set you apart by doing dry fire like this. Even if you don't increase your live fire round count or your training at all, if you just do this at home every day for 30, 60 minutes, this is what will set you apart right here. Most people aren't dry fire. Of the people who do, most of them, their definition of success in their dry fire is to dry fire. You know, like, I gotta get my hands on the gun for 15 minutes a day. That's my goal, right? Imagine you're in the gym and you see that football player who makes $20 million a year. You say, wow, that guy's a pro. He does this for a living. He makes $20 million a year doing this. I'm gonna ask him what his workout's like today. And you say, brother, what are you doing today in the gym? And he says, gotta work out for 60 minutes a day. You'd be like, right, but what are you training today? Like, what are you working on? You make $20 million a year. You have a specific job in your sport where you have to be able to do things. What are you doing? He says, gotta be in here working out for 60 minutes. And then you ask him that 3 more times because you're like, there's no way this guy's only definition of success is to get his hands on the gun, to do some dry fire, to do some draws, to get some sight pictures and do some transitions. That's not a definition of success. That's just being in the gym, which is very different from working out, which is also different from training, right? Working out is being in the gym, and actually being in the gym is just being there physically. Working out is working out, but maybe not with a specific purpose. Training is I'm going to do X so that Y happens with my body or my performance or my abilities. We're training. Yes.
So in other words, actually show up to achieve some goals. Don't just show up to check the box and say, I did this today. Now it's done, right? Actually show up with some goals like we just went over.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you don't have a clear definition of success in your dry fire, you won't keep doing it. Right, if your definition of success is got to get my hands on the gun for 20 minutes a day, you're going to quit doing that in a week or 3. But if you're over here missing dinner because you're like, oh man, I'm so fucking close to that par time. The dot was pretty wobbly right there. That could have been 1% better. I know with 1 more rep, I can make that 1% better. That you will keep doing long term. And like I said at the beginning, like if I'm known for a thing, it's becoming good really fast, winning a national title in limited division, whatever, okay. Becoming a GM, whatever. That still took years of dry firing. For me, I was doing 1 to 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah, but Grandmaster national champion with 30,000 rounds fired in my life. That's why we're here. Anyway, notes at the top, written big, in that space above the first line. Clear definition of success. Equals, I get what I want. This is true in life. If the most important thing to me was to own, what's a really expensive car? What's like one of those really expensive?
McLaren.
If my clear definition of success was to own a McLaren, how much do them cost? Anybody have any idea?
Too much.
Too rich for my blood.
They cost lots of money, right? If that was my clear definition of success, and I was willing to ignore other things, you bet I'd quit taking my fiance out to dinner on Saturdays, Fridays. You bet I would sell my house that I own at a low interest rate from several years ago and rent a shitty little apartment. You bet I would get a second job, work nights, might even get rid of my car, ride a bicycle to work, find something local. Yeah. Give me 2 to 3 years, I'll have the down payment for that McLaren. For sure. But as soon as I say, yeah, I really want that car, but man, I don't want to ride a bike to work when it's cold outside, so I'll keep my car. And man, I really like hitting some beers with the boys on Saturdays, so I'll give up these things, but not those things. Now I'm never going to have enough money for the down payment for the McLaren, and my life sucks more. That's training without a clear definition of success. I don't do that. Anyway, clear definition of success, I get what I want. First main heading, first title, dry fire. That's title size. There's going to be titles, subtitles, and bullet points. Keep this organized. First title, dry fire. First subtitle, speed mode. First bullet point under speed mode. Speed is the definition of success. You can abbreviate definition of success, DOS. Someone posts something on Instagram. They're like, doing this drill. Like, cool drill, bro. What's your DOS? What's your DOS, bro? Nice, you doing a bill drill? What's your DOS? What do you mean I'm doing bill drills? Yeah, but what's your definition? Yeah, second bullet point. Accuracy does not matter. But don't worry, we're going to add some nuance to that. That sounds really spicy. You almost don't want to type it down. What? Accuracy does not matter. At that same bullet point, in parentheses, must know where and how. Every sight picture. I'm trying to put this in fewer words so it takes less typing, right? You must know where and how the dot showed up on every sight picture. If it's a Charlie, great. It's a Delta, I don't care. Dot was a little bit wobbly, dot was drifting a little bit, great. As long as you knew that. Where and how. So we're always building proprioception with the dot. The second bullet point was accuracy does not matter. Parentheses, must know where and how the dot shows up on every sight picture. Third bullet point, 0 to 1 trigger pull per target. 0 or 1 trigger pull per target. Now the reason I'm not doing 2 is because my ability to slap the trigger twice really fast is not my limiting factor of speed. And even if it was, that would come at a cost of some kind of accuracy, building the habit of just slapping the trigger twice as fast as I can. And whatever you do in dry fire for a high volume of reps will become normal. And one thing that I don't want to make normal is getting one sight picture and then slapping my trigger twice. That's acceptable on some targets in our sport, a minority of them. So that's not a habit that I want to build, and how fast I can pull the trigger is also not the limiting factor of my speed. Next bullet point, eyes, not gun, is limiting factor of speed. It'll be a visual challenge to beat par times, not a physical one. Next bullet point, par time. You can just write par time, but you need to have the par time. The par time forces you outside your comfort zone and helps gamify your training so that it's fun. What feels fast is 100% of your normal speed. You do something at 100% of your normal speed, your brain's gonna say, that's about as fast as it gets, Jimmy. That was pretty damn fast. That wasn't 90, that wasn't 80, that was 100%. Good dry fire, speed mode dry fire is starting at like 120, 130%. well outside the comfort zone. Am I forgetting anything in speed? Okay. We'll add the variation stuff in later. Boom. All right. That's right. So if I say don't slow it down, that's like saying I gotta pick different words because we're gonna put this on because this is gonna be on video so people can watch it. I was doing uncensored. That's what people like. That's what people like. Maybe I'll say something about Israel next. That'll really get a lot of views. All right. So no. So if I say don't think about titties, do not think about titties, right? What you get in your mind is maybe the word don't, D-O-N''T, maybe some letters, and then titties. I should have just used the match example. That would have been way more professional. If I say don't shoot the no shoot, right? Focus on don't shoot the no shoot. You get D-O-N-T, maybe. Maybe you got some letters with an apostrophe and mental visualizations of me dropping that dot down into that white no shoot. Don't do this. Don't do this. When you're shooting the stage, the letters D-O-N-T aren't there anymore. You can't visualize negatives. You can't visualize not doing something, right? Ernie, try harder not to sit down right now. Try harder not to sit down. You can't. You can't try harder not to do something. So, don't slow it down. How do I focus on doing that? Well, you gotta focus on something else, right? Don't think about titties. We get titties. First bullet point, accuracy is the definition of success. Second bullet point, just like up above, this one's gonna sound spicy, but then we'll add nuance with parentheses behind it. Second bullet point, speed does not matter. What? Sounds kind of spicy. I feel like somebody would argue with me about that if I said that at a restaurant after a match. Speed does not matter. Parentheses, never intentionally slowed down. And then if you want, you can type an extra note after that about, okay, how do I not slow it down? I need to try harder not to slow it down. Nope, you can't try harder not to do something. You'll need to focus on something else. That'll be hunting and gathering those out. The definition of success never changes to speed. It just changes to, oh, I'm done on this target. I can find the next alpha sooner. Speed does not matter, parentheses, never intentionally slowed down. What was our third bullet point up above? Was it trigger pulls?
Yeah, trigger pull.
You can do 0 to 2 trigger pulls, baby, or more. Okay? Unlimited trigger pulls. Just write 0 to 2 though. And you don't have to write this, but remember, you can do that because those trigger pulls are in accuracy mode. Which actually, make that the next bullet point. When in accuracy mode, everything's in accuracy mode. And while you're typing that, an unnecessary tangent that I find interesting. The Germans have a better word for accuracy than we do. This is actually the first class that I've taught in English in like 3 months. So the German word for accuracy is Genauigkeit. The kite on the end just means ness. That's just a suffix that makes it a noun, ness. So the German word for exact is genau. And that's the word they use for accuracy, right? So if I was like, hey, how accurate was your run? I would say, hey, how genau was your run? But if I also wanted to say, how good was your grip? I would also say, how genau was your grip? So like when I say in English, when I'm in accuracy mode, my grip has to be in accuracy mode. That sounds weird, right? Grip, accurate. My grip needs to be precise. That would make more sense. That German word is better. It's G-E-N-A-U, if anybody wants to write it down. Super fun. Variation / randomization. Now, as soon as I give you guys these notes, if it hasn't already, it should dawn upon you how much dry fire you could be doing without having to do the same thing, and also without having to buy Joey Sauerland's dry fire book of drills. Right? One of the most common questions I get is, oh, you're a dry fire guy. Like, oh, I want to dry fire more, but I'm not sure what drills I should be doing. I word it this way mainly so it sounds extra spicy, but I don't do drills. I don't believe in drills. What I mean by that is, there's no magical value to some specific setup of targets or order of engagement, right? You need a random order of targets, random target array, and you need a clear definition of success. So, that was a bit of a side tangent. Variation means, type down what you want. I'm gonna monologue about variation and randomization a little bit, and at the end I'll wrap it up with the bullet points you have to have, but write down what you want. Variation is how you do something. Randomization is what you're doing. For example, if I had an array of 10 targets that I was engaging in whatever order, I could randomize that training by doing an unloaded start and a different order of targets. That would be randomizing my training, but still in speed mode. How I'm doing it hasn't changed. What I was doing changed. That's randomization. Variation is changing how you do something. For example, I keep the same target array with the same start position, but all of a sudden I switch to accuracy mode from speed mode. That's variation. So it should be, the point of what I said a minute ago was, it should be obvious now. If I say you need anywhere from 8 to 15 miniature targets on your wall at home with dry fire, look how many variables you have. 2 gross variables, speed mode, accuracy mode. Within speed mode, you could be doing blocked training, semi-blocked training. Maybe you're doing, blocked training would be I'm doing a high number of reps of the exact same thing. Semi-blocked is somewhere in between. Maybe it's 5 reps before I change a target array, 8 reps before I change target array, 3 reps, right? It's a full spectrum. And totally randomized training would be doing 1 rep and then changing the target array. You could be doing 0 trigger pulls or 1. I could switch over into accuracy mode. 0 trigger pulls or 2. Different amounts of randomization and variation. There's a million things you can do. What I think you don't need is a book that says, here are the dry fire drills, right? You set up these 4 targets and then you do this and you put the reload here. There's not, you don't need the drills, right? You need a random target array. You need a clear definition of success. So under randomization and variation, it's good to have written down those are 2 different things. Randomization is what you're doing, like start position, target array. Variation is how you're doing it, like speed mode, accuracy mode. Trigger pulls is like somewhere in between. Like it's different, but it's also changing how you're doing it a little bit. That's somewhere in between the 2. But just understand there's differences between randomization and variation. And then you need to put some note that illustrates the point that the closer you are to expert in a skill, the more randomization and variation you should have in your training. Closer you are to beginner, and remember, this spectrum is not from beginner to GM. This spectrum is from beginner to Eric Graffel. One day, I will have multiple world titles, and I will use myself as that example. But for now, we'll use him because he's the GOAT. Him/Christian Seiler, right? Them the GOATs. Those 2 guys, their combined skills are the expert level we're referring to. The 100%. Beginner is beginner. So anyway, closer you are to expert, more randomization and variation. If anybody here considers me anything close to an expert, I still do a great amount of blocked training because I still can get faster. I still can get more accurate. Definitely. Those are skills. So I do blocked training in speed mode so I can lay down a high volume of reps outside my comfort zone of speed. Same thing with accuracy. Randomization and variation. Questions so far? Point is, yes, it is the sights of the gun that tell you where the bullets go. And those sights in recoil is a lot of very fast, very fine information that we need to know how to process. That's what shot calling is, right? I know where my hits are on the target, and we'll get into this more in a minute, but I know where my hits are on target with a degree of precision that will allow me to know whether or not that hit is going to be acceptable, which is a fluid definition that changes all the time with the stage, with the target, with the situation. But right now we're just gonna call it acceptable. And so in training, like everything, we're gonna try and do everything much more than we would in real life, right? We train everything outside our comfort zone. So when we do this exercise, your definition of success is gonna be to know down to the spot. That hit was here. Alpha Charlie line, 2 inches above mid-alpha height, right there, with as much precision as possible. But understand, we're training for that much precision in the shot calling so that when I'm at the match, I don't need to know exactly where my bullet hit the target. I need to know as my gun begins to recoil, as that dot lifts, that's an acceptable hit. That's going to be a second acceptable hit. I'm now finished with this target with confidence. And go. Acceptable. But in training, we're gonna try and call the exact spot, so doing that acceptable at the match is very easy. So how it's gonna work, beep, draw, 2 shots. Ah, you got a shot up target. Ah, you can't tell by looking at the front where your hits are. You might be able to see sunlight through the holes against that nice bright back berm. Try not to look for sunlight through the holes, that's cheating. Beep, draw, 2 shots. Pop, pop. You'll holster your gun up, wait for my green light to go downrange. Once everyone is holstered, I will give the command to go check them. Then you're gonna walk up to your target. While you're walking up, you're gonna say my first shot was right here. My second shot was a little bit higher left, Alpha Charlie line, or wherever. And then you'll go around and you'll check the fresh target that's on the back of your target. That will have 2 nice, fresh punch bullet holes in it. And then we will paste just the back target. And we will repeat. So how do we call shots? All right, so it's the sights that tell us what do I need to see from the sights against the target to know where my bullet went. We'll cut straight to it. Usually someone will give the answer. It's where the dot was when I pulled the trigger. Kind of. You shoot a couple matches and you know there's plenty of time between me consciously deciding to pull the trigger and the bullet leaving the barrel for that dot to be moved elsewhere. It will be where your dot recoiled from. And what's cool about a dot, which does not work this way with iron sights. However hard you think this might be, know that it's not 50% harder with iron sights. It's not 100% harder. It's like 5 times as hard with iron sights. Even if my dot's going like this, like a sinking ship over the horizon that I can't see, when that gun goes off, at the bottom of that line, roughly, is where my hit is on that target. That's nice. Imagine iron sights, where you've got 2 things. A relationship between which you have to interpret and understand, and then project to a certain distance, right? This sight picture with iron sights on a 5-yard target is a completely different hit than that same sight picture on a 10 or a 15-yard target, right? This, at 5 yards, a sight picture with iron sights here, at 15 yards is probably a mic. Fucking hard. Anyway, dot, super nice, wobbly. You might not see exactly where the dot was when the gun went off, but because of how dots work, you will be able to interpret where did that dot recoil from. That's where the bullet went, as long as your dot is sighted in. Questions?
When the dots, say that last part again, when the dot's going all the way around, whatever you said.
Yep.
And if it's doing that, it's gonna land where again? I missed that.
I'm not concerned with where it's gonna land. Where it leaves from.
Got it.
Yes, which even if you can't see the exact spot, when it does recoil, you should get a nice little flag, streak, rocket flare indicator of the bottom of that line is where it recoiled from.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah. And usually someone asks the question, okay, how fast or slow should I be shooting right now? Well, if you shoot mega fast, you won't be able to call your shots, and the exercise is null and void. If you shoot like you're trying to do group shooting, right? You know, nice, slow, controlled trigger prep, dots right there on the target, perfectly stable, surprise trigger break. That shot calling is so easy, because the dot was just sitting there stable until it jumped up. That shot calling is so easy, I'm not training my shot calling, right? That's lifting the 1-pound dumbbells at the gym. It's not doing anything. It's not hard enough. So for right now at the start, I want you to just shoot normally. Whatever that means. Whatever that means. All right? From the Genie, and then on my own, I would spend all my live fire. If they made me the best at that, I would spend all my live fire money on shot calling. But so in the notes under live fire, we have the first thing that says grip. We got the second thing that will be shot calling. That's our second subtitle under live fire. Shot calling. Write it big. Write it in all caps. This is important. I'm gonna talk about this for another minute. Shot calling is my favorite. Bullet point number 1. And if you wanted to write this in ways that resonate, I think better, I would write where at bullet point 1, where in all caps. And then in small, the dot, recoiled. And then in big, from.
What was the last word?
From. Where the dot recoiled from.
Okay.
And that's something that sometimes you have to extrapolate or interpolate depending on the activity of your dot before you break in the shot. Because you might not see exactly where the dot was when the gun went off, but you'll see that streak. You'll see that behavior of the dot in recoil, and you'll need to extrapolate or interpolate the information of where that means it recoiled from. So anyway, that's what it is. That's what shot calling is, where the dot recoiled from. That's what it is and how you do it. Well, I guess what it is knowing where you're hitting the paper without looking at the holes in the paper, right? It's the sights of your gun telling you where you're hitting. How to do it is seeing and processing where the dot recoiled from. Third bullet point, just write down something about the exercise. And this exercise is composed of, you have a target with a backer, a shot up target with a backer. And if shot calling correctness, not accuracy, not the accuracy of your hits, Alpha, Charlie, Delta, but if the accuracy of your shot calling is 90% or above, then you dial that speed and aggressiveness up. Not because we're in speed mode, but because I want to make the shot calling harder. That way when I shoot normally, trying to leave all acceptable hits, it's comparatively easy. The dot is comparatively stable and predictable.
Question.
Yes.
Sorry. If your shot calling is 90%, dial up the speed, right? But how do you know if it's 90% if you're not a math guy?
So that's that rough scoring system. So 50 points per hit. If it's within the smaller than peanut butter jar size lid olive jar size, that's 50 out of 50, right? Especially if you're doing this at over 10 yards away, right? You're calling within 1.5 inch or less where your bullet hit that paper target. That's already more precise than your shot calling will need to be at the match by a margin. So if within that area you get the 50, and then outside of that, it's just probably more generous than you think. So, you know, if you shoot a right side alpha, but it was a center alpha, and it's, 3 inches away or something like that, you might be like, I didn't call it right. You knew that it wasn't a Charlie. You knew for damn sure it wasn't a Delta. You knew it wasn't high. You knew it wasn't low. Just start checking those boxes. Well, I did know it was to the right, just not that far. Okay, well, you got some points for knowing that it was to the right, right? You knew that it was on paper. You get a minimum of 10 points for knowing it was on paper. Play around with that scoring, but basically, just like in speed mode dry fire, the working zone you want to be in is, I'm doing it well, I'm doing it correctly, but it could have been a little bit better. So if you get to a point where you're like, rep after rep, I'm calling these like damn good, then dial it up. You want to be in a working zone where you're finishing a rep and you're thinking, that was good, but I could do it a little bit better. That's the speed you want to be shooting at. Slightly outside the comfort zone, to where it's challenging your shot calling a little bit. I did it well, but it could have been a little bit better. I'm really going to see where that dot recoils from on the next one. So shot calling. Next bullet point under shot calling, right? Speed or throttle control. People talk about speed and throttle control. I think that trying to go fast at the match is a when I say procedural, I'm not talking about like USPSA procedurals. I'm talking about my procedure in execution of a stage. That's a procedural error. If we were reviewing it after the fact, it's like, yes, you tried to go fast and you fucked up. That was an error. And I know that was the reason for the error, is because I was trying to go fast. Shot calling for me controls the speed. Think about this. How much time does it take to gather the visual information required to call shots on a 30-yard target? I don't need a number, just visualize that. How much visual information is required to know that I'm leaving acceptable hits? That's what I'm going to gather at the match, that much information. On that 2-yard on the ground low hoser open target. How much visual information do I need? I definitely don't need to see my dot. Kind of the outline of my gun is going to fit inside the entire alpha. It's never 0, but that might be 5 out of 100 visual information needs to be gathered to know I'm leaving acceptable hits. Well, guess what? It takes less time to gather the 5 than it does the 80 or whatever on the 30-yard target. Trying to go fast, I think, is a procedural error. If I'm doing shot calling, targets that are easier take less time to gather the necessary information. But my definition of success on the stage is shot calling. Calling acceptable hits. That's all I'm doing. If I try to go fast, I will fuck up eventually. And I will wish that I had not tried to go fast. If I slow down to get my hits, I will wish that I had gone faster. And that's where most people lie, is in the purgatory of, they shoot a stage, they go fast, they have a mic, and then they're like, I need to slow down and get my hits. And then they shoot a whole bunch of alpha on the next stage, and they're like, yeah, it was good, but it was slow. And just like people who don't know how to dry fire, or people who don't know how to train, right? There's bouncing back and forth between these two things. Meanwhile, my definition of success, one, is something I'm really good at, train all the time, and can do really well, right? I train my shot calling really well. I can do that on every single target, on every single stage. I have a process that works on every single stage, takes control of my speed, and if I do it correctly, if I choose to do it correctly on every target, guarantees me acceptable hits on all targets. Genie comes out of the bottle. I'm gonna whip up a magic potion for you to drink before your match. What do you want it to do? I want it to let me shoot at pretty much my maximum speed while knowing I'm leaving acceptable hits on all the targets. You just call your shots. Call all of your shots, even when it feels slow sometimes on hard targets. And even if you feel like you could be pushing faster on that hoser target, just call your shots. It'll take less time to shoot that target. Especially if you practice shot calling on different distances and difficulties of targets, which I would encourage. All right, so let me wrap up my shots on thought calling. My thoughts on shot calling. Throttle control, calling shots, makes you look cool. Because you're processing a good amount of visual information, sometimes shot calling feels slower. Because it's definitely not hitting the gas and trying to go fast. I find that hitting the gas and trying to go fast not only makes your hits worse, it usually ends up taking more time, right? If I'm trying to transition the gun really fast, faster than my normal speed, faster than the speed at which my eyes normally bring the next target into focus and tell my brain how far I need to move the gun. If I'm trying to do it faster than that, I usually just get bouncing a faster speed of transition, bouncing around the next target, and a longer time in between shots between targets. Going fast is not just sloppier, it usually tends to take a longer time. Even though it might be faster, it takes a longer time. And when we get into movement stuff here in a little bit, that's going to be a recurring theme too. They don't put your speed into the tablet for your score. Where's the new guy at? They don't put your speed into the tablet for your score. It's not part of your score. Okay. They just put how long it took you. And what feels really fast usually takes a little bit longer. Usually. All right. A stage and a match is everything is a gimmick. Tuxedo targets, that's a gimmick to get you to slow down and get your hits. A low port, that's a gimmick to get you worried about getting low enough and getting down to the ground. The freaking motorcycle stage at whatever area match, you gotta sit on the motorcycle and shoot strong hand. That's gimmicks to distract you from calling acceptable shots on all the targets, right? The close, open, easy target, that's a gimmick to try and trick you to throw 2 shots at it really fast instead of just calling your shots. Everything at the match is a gimmick. Everything is bullshit. I call all of my shots on all the targets. That happens near my maximum speed and guarantees me acceptable hits on every stage. If I do it on all targets, on all stages. But anyway, everything is a gimmick. So in your training, just start setting up gimmicks. That's what most of my live fire practice has looked like up till now, is I'm doing shot calling and I'm throwing extra stuff in. So for example, like what we did now, it's harder to call your shots in awkward positions or while moving. Boom. You could have 2 cones on the ground, a target in the middle. You're moving in between cones while calling shots on that target. Bam. All the visual information processing that's practical while moving in an awkward position from an awkward start position. So just throw in stuff that you might see on stages and do shot calling with those additional external challenges applied. And then also, you can do shot calling on multiple targets, but don't put up multiple backers. Albert's gonna shoot 6 shots on 3 targets in 2.1 seconds at 12 yards. Pop, 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 pop. Memorizing 6 hits on 3 different targets in 2.1 seconds is now a nearly impossible memory game. It doesn't need to be a memory game. When the gun recoils, we need to check a box that says acceptable or not. Move on to the next box. Once we've checked 2 acceptable boxes, that target and the hits can vaporize. That target's checked off. I'm leaving it with confidence.
So all you're remembering is just acceptable hits.
At
Just
the,
acceptable.
At the match, yes. In training with 1 backer target, I'm trying to call the exact spot and check it. If I want to use multiple targets for shot calling and training, only the last one has a backer target, because I don't need to make it a memory game. You got to make sure that you're doing the same process on all 3 of those targets, for example. There, and I just remember those last 2 and go straight to that target. Be out of the way of the gun, but we're not moving the wall, which means
We need to move our body.
Okay, so in this one specific setup, and this is like a lot of stuff today, this is just one easy setup. This is to illustrate a training principle that you'll then set up any number of different things for and apply the principle to it. But Albert says the gun needs to clear the wall. I'm gonna go ahead and roughly translate that to, in this scenario, the gun needs to be right about here. This doesn't count. This is unnecessary. The gun needs to be here. That's what my movement in between positions is going to accomplish, is putting the gun here next. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, okay, I'm gonna pull my gun out if you wanna take one step back. It's not loaded or anything, but, well, okay, what if I put the gun here like this? All right, as soon as somebody does that, we'll address that. I've never had anybody do that before, right? I think you will arrive behind the gun when you're doing this, but if anybody has an issue with that, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But this is your new definition of success. Not pumping your arms, not running hard. Your definition of success is to get the gun where it needs to be next. That's what I want you to focus on. Very subjective, very nuanced, right? So put yourself in the shoes. Here's what I want you to do. When you step up and your turn is up, you'll make ready. And then before you take your hand off the gun, I just want you to glance over there at your definition of success, which is where the gun needs to be, which is not there. And it's also not there. Everybody tracking? This is where the gun needs to be. If your movement accomplishes that sooner, the popper can be shot sooner. If it doesn't, it can't. Comprende? So your definition of success, and this is intentionally with minimal instructions, is to shoot the popper and then focus on nothing other than, I'm gonna take this gun and I'm gonna put it right there. Nothing in between. And obviously nothing is not literal.
Needs to go. Stand by.
Again?
The first part of this was so good, you have a lot more in this
All right, now you're doing a lot. In your case, I want less. Okay, so let me tell you this. This is very subjective. This is the vibe that I'm looking for. In between these positions, you're doing a lot of things that all take time. I would like to do the smallest number of things. So we can't try harder not to do something with our movements, right? We can try harder to do something else. Right now, I would like to have something else. When you take the gun, just place it. So there's actually no time. Movement in between positions is also a fucking gimmick at the match. There is no time to run. Okay. There's no time to pump your arms. There's no time to do things. There's only time to put the gun down. Nothing in between. Just try it out as an experiment. Worst case scenario, you die. Stand by. Can you replicate whatever it felt like to do that with the gun?
Yes, sir.
And you probably still could do less, but you just keep focusing on gun where it needs to go, nothing else. Stand by. That's the least you've done. That's the least you've done. Do whatever you did with the gun. Again, stand by. Again. Damn right. Damn right.
Yeah, we're doing Hawaii.
Stand by.
Week and a half of June. That's coming.
Give us one more. Keep doing what you're doing with the gun. You've actually got plenty of time to shoot that steel. The shooting is normal. Don't even think about the shooting. Just put the gun where it needs to go. Stand by.
I liked it, but it's very different from what
Unload, show clear. Size. Movement training. First subtitle. Speed mode movement training. Bullet point number 1. Definition of success. : get the gun where it needs to go. Second bullet point. It can say something that resonates with you. It doesn't have to say exactly this, but basically I want the vibe of running faster, trying harder, frequently takes more time. However, getting the gun where it needs to go sooner is the thing that I'm trying to have take less time. Something along those lines. The answer is not pumping your arms harder. It's not sprinting harder. it is going to be probably focusing on the gun more and where the gun needs to be next, and let your body build movement patterns around it. Write something along those lines at that bullet point there. And then next bullet point, speed mode rules apply, baby. Should I be doing this with a par time? What do my sight pictures need to look like? How many trigger pulls should I do with this? Speed mode rules apply. See above. Next subtitle, accuracy mode. And this one's simple, because remember, we don't have a special different definition of success for accuracy mode. So your first bullet point's just going to say, movement requirements, accuracy mode rules apply. Just doing accuracy mode with movement requirements. Your second bullet point will say, because if there was, because if we're talking about interpositional movement, you can't be accurate while not engaging targets, right? That's why the interpositional movement training, there's not really an accuracy mode for that. If there was, I would be extra focused on have the gun ready when it gets there. That means my dot's going to be nice and stable when it does arrive. Have the gun ready when it gets there. Next subtitle. We got speed mode, we got accuracy mode. Now we've got shooting while moving. Bullet point 1, real movement. Put real in all caps. Remember, that means we're not sneaking into the bedroom, right? Then you're probably be a little bit less accurate and also not get anywhere. So real movement. Second bullet point, constant trigger prep. And remember, we're not actively trying to time up our shots in between steps. That'll happen very naturally. Your brain will start to recognize, the dot's moving. The dot's stable. But I know where my foot is, and I know about how much time there is until it hits the ground without having to think about it, because I got great proprioception with my own body. Constant trigger prep. That way that gun can go off in between shots without disturbing it with the trigger pull, because we're rushing to shoot it before the foot hits the ground. And then if you want to throw the note in there about while moving laterally, ideally moving laterally, you just walk forward. Lateral movement, ideally, you just walk forward. But if there's transitions that require it, that's when you'll be cross-stepping. And then hit enter again. We're still under the movement training notes, but this is just a separate set of bullet points. That's our 3 general rules for movement, whether I'm shooting while moving, accuracy mode, speed mode, position change. 3 general rules. 1, straight line. Obviously, that doesn't mean a perfectly straight line all the time, obviously. Seldom is someone moving the gun in too straight of a line, though. They're usually throwing it all over the place and then having to get it ready when it gets there. That's the vibe. Second one, low wide stance. That's a good idea. What was the third one? Was there a third one?
I thought it was trigger prep, yeah.
2 was body low, stance wide. What was the third one? Was there a third one?
A third what?
Oh, I remember what it was. 2 hands. 2 hands on the gun. The vast majority of the time. I have not yet seen someone keep 2 hands on the gun too often. And obviously, not all the time. There'll be times I'm going to break my grip and I'm going to run somewhere because I'm doing category 3 movement. I'm going to run somewhere, break my grip, pop my arms, whatever. Much more frequently, though, both hands will stay on the gun. Those are 3 general rules, and then hit enter again with an extra space. And now we're just going to put our 3 categories of movement, which again, this isn't like a training method. This isn't a definition of success. It's just nice general guidelines if you find yourself wondering, what should I be looking? I'm trying to beat this par time with this piece of movement that I've randomly set up. What should I be looking at? What might help me? So category 1, target dash target. That's where your eyes go. Category 1. It's usually like 0.5 to 1.5 steps. There's still movement. Very common in our sport too. That amount of movement is extremely common in our sport. My eyes are going target to target. Category 2, what we did the interpositional movement training was a great example of that. Target where the gun needs to go, and then target. And obviously for category 2 and 3, the next target, we're always looking at that before I/the gun arrive at that position. That's always happening before, but that's the order. Target where the gun needs to go, target. And then category 3, that's where I'm gonna run somewhere. Target, position / spot on the ground. And then I put it in parentheses here. Maybe in between those things where the gun needs to go also, before I'm then looking back at the next target. And that's also written on the board. If anybody wants to take a picture of it. Let's see, what else? I think a good additional note, just because it came up a lot today, that you could just throw at the bottom would be individual shots. Individual shots. Trying to double tap targets will make your transitions a lot slower, and that second shot considerably less accurate. It will make you slower. It won't make you slower, because your shots will be fast, and then you will have doubled this target without prepping your eyes or head for your transition at all. So your splits will be faster, and your transitions will be faster, but it'll take you more time to get all the targets shot, and you'll probably have worse hits. They don't put your speed into the tablet, they put how long it took you. Individual shots, not double tapping. And all of these rules are like, you know, most of the time. Obviously, sometimes there's that target right there. That bayonet target that if I had a rifle, I would bayonet it instead of shoot it. Those I'm double tapping.